All right, my friends, welcome back to Barriers and Boundaries Resilience Leadership Podcast. And I'm very, very, very excited for the guest today, Scott Scovill. Scott, how you doing, man? It's good to see
I'm
you.
doing great, man. It's good to be here.
Author of Tenacious, new book released right there, got in the hands. Had a chance to go through the book. Love the story and just the persistence, the dedication, and not necessarily worried about so much about perfection in all of this, but really getting into some of the disciplines, overcome some barriers, and that's kind of what we're about here.
Well, years ago, I first discovered that I was afraid of public speaking, and I don't like being afraid of things. So I started volunteering to speak at colleges, and I was able to really affect someone's life. And with my very second speech, a girl up front started crying, and she told me that she had quit school and that hearing me talk, she had decided to stay in school. And that was like, wow, like just because I showed up here, someone's life has taken a really different trajectory. And I mentored her a little bit, and she did graduate college. But with all that, I just wanted to be better. And so Cameron Harold, who's one of the guests in my book, is an awesome public speaker. I asked him to mentor me. And at the end of our first session, he said, "You're such a storyteller. You should write a book." And I'm like, I've never wanted to write a book. I'm not going to write a book. But he got me thinking about it. And that night I was like, what would I write about? And I thought it would have to be tenacity, because being tenacious has made every bit of difference in my life. And come to think of it, every bit of difference in all of my famous friends' lives. That would be the thing that I could share and could really help people. And so once I realized I could help people with it, I was like, okay, I have to write a book now. So I did. I wrote a book called Tenacious, and it talks about how tenacity is just the greatest superpower you can have that'll make a difference in your life, that it's 100% trainable, and that it just made all the difference for me and all of my famous friends.
And I like that you talked about, that 100% trainable, developable in the book, and just the idea of someone facing a reality that they're unsure of, that they don't think this is going to work out for them. And that that takes the word hope in a whole new meaning for me, of just having something to trust, having something to look past current situation. And I noticed, in the book you talked about being in high school and senior year, and just all the adversity that and the realization, and got a reality check at one point.
Yeah, I was told I wasn't going to graduate, which stunned me. I was a horrible student. I couldn't do my homework, but I would get decent scores on the exams, and they kept moving me on. And partway through my senior year, they were like, "Hey, we just realized you're not going to graduate." I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "You don't have enough credits." And I'm like, but I'll do okay on the exams. And they're like, "It doesn't matter. You got to have a passing average." And my average was so bad. It was awful. It turns out psychologists would later tell me that I had a fear of failure that was so pronounced that it'd be easier for me to grab a hold of a hot stove and maim myself than to actually try. And that fear kept me from doing my homework. Every time I tried to do my homework, I was so afraid it wouldn't be good enough that I would have an anxiety attack. And so there I was, unable to do my homework, suddenly finding that the only way to graduate high school would be to actually do my back homework. And it was awful. It was so painful for me. I spent the better part of 2 months in an anxiety attack, but I managed to pass by the skin of my teeth. But then I went on to college and flunked out of college for the same reason. I couldn't make myself apply to my homework without fear overcoming me, which is kind of crazy that the fear of failure is exactly what was making me fail. And it felt like something I couldn't get past and would never get past.
Not the failure itself, but just the idea or the fear of failure. And I felt like that was a great distinction to make too, because people, that mental resilience, that fortitude that it sometimes takes just to get started. A lot of times people get started like, okay, maybe it's not so bad. You start learning more information about what you're
Totally.
doing, or starting a business, or going to school. That
Yeah.
was an excellent point to make.
And, I present myself as not being the most tenacious person in the world, but I might be the most improved, because back then I was so afraid of trying. I couldn't try at all, which is the opposite of tenacious. Tenacious is when you just keep trying no matter how much it hurts. And lucky for me, something happened. I was waiting tables, flunking out of college, rock bottom moment. And a tour bus with a space shuttle painted on the side pulled in, and it was U2's technical staff. And I was stunned to discover that you could work in the music business. And it just had never occurred to me. And that was so interesting to me that I asked them a million questions. Finally, they're like, "Hey, kid, we got to go. Just come to the next show and we'll answer more of your questions." I accepted their invitation. I went. It was an incredible day. The lights went out, the crowd went wild, and standing there in the dark, I had this paradigm shift. 15,000 screaming fans, and I'm like, holy cats, this is what you're going to do with your life. You love music, you love technology, you love the idea of seeing the world with you too? What? This is nuts. And I was so excited, but a moment later, my heart sank when I realized that to do any of that, I was going to have to try. And standing there in the dark, I made myself a promise that I was going to start trying and never stop trying until that dream life was my life. And in that moment, really, tenacity, I think, was born. I showed some tenacity to get out of high school, maybe, but it was more like the actions of a cornered animal than someone who was actually trying to do something for themselves. And yeah, it changed my life.
So you had this moment, the epiphany, the light bulbs went off. Was there anybody else mentoring you, articulating to you in this, hey, when we find a purpose and when that purpose lights up, then you know what to go for? This sounds like this was all an epiphany that hit you.
Yeah, it was. It's naive, but it never occurred to me that you could work in music if you weren't a musician. In fact, what I said to the table, I walked out and said, "So I don't get it. What's the deal with the bus?" And because I was interested. And one of them said, "Well, we work for the band you too. We're the very best in the world at what we do." And I said, I would have thought you had to be Bono's cousin to do that or something. I don't understand. And they said, "Oh, we put on the lights and the sound and the show. And you 7 of us are the very best in the world at what we do." And he puts his arm around the guy next to him and goes, "And this is AJ. He's Bono's cousin," which was a really funny moment and a great icebreaker. But the discovery that you could do that for a living, and AJ's an awesome guy, by the way. I still connect with him periodically. Great human. But yeah, the discovery that I could do something exciting with my life. I mean, if you want to be tenacious, I tell people you're not going to be tenacious by getting through a job you hate. That's resilience, maybe, and grit. But to me, at least my version of tenacity, which might not be the exact dictionary version, is it's something you use to chase down a dream. There's got to be a reason why you're willing to get hurt, why you're willing to fail. And I finally had my why. I finally had a reason. And then the next thing, and you touched on this, when you start moving, it's not so bad. The next thing is just take a step forward because you're scared as hell that the sky is just going to fall when you start moving forward. Prior to that moment that you take that first step, you're the guy who's failing. The moment you take that first step, even though you're 1,000 steps away from the finish line, you become the guy who's trying, which is a really different thing. And I found that all of my fears weren't really justified. I mean, yeah, some bad things happened to me, but none of it was half as bad as I imagined it was in my head. And once I got going, it was like, well, wait a minute, this isn't so bad. Now, that's not to say that I didn't, for honestly, the next couple of years, periodically break down into tears and have some real moments. But whenever that would happen, I'd pull it together and I'd keep going because having those moments mixed in with actually making some progress was way better than the kid who was sitting there failing out of college and wondering where his life would be in 10 years if he just kept failing and not succeeding. And these are dramatic examples, but I think in the book, I encourage people to use them to chase all kinds of little dreams too. And I've done that. There's a lot of examples in the book of little things I've gone after. Being an author, I guess I wouldn't call it a little thing. It was a huge undertaking, but I decided to do that. Decided to be a singer and have opened for Brad Paisley, and actually am again June 11th and 13th. I'll be opening for Brad in Norway coming up.
That's awesome.
Little things that just have made my life so much better that young me would have been far too afraid to try and do. But that forced attempt that the dream created, like, okay, I got to try and do this. I want to be on the road with bands too. I want to see the world and help music be heard and seen. And that the lessons I learned there, the tenacity that I learned from that 3-4 year journey before I was out with a major act. I was with the Rolling Stones about 3 years later. Those lessons have carried me through a lifetime of accomplishments because I wired myself away from the fear. I'm now wired to go like, yeah, that's scary and I'm going to fail and that's not going to be the end of the world. And here I go. Is it worth it? Yeah, I want to do that.
And I'm thinking about people that they feel stuck in a job. They feel stuck in their life. in a rut, this book I feel like can speak to them, but only in a sense that you touched on it of you found your why. And the difference between there's so many people that are working jobs that they hate, but they're very successful because they're getting something out of it. And I like the impact that you are able to have on the music industry itself. That's the difference between getting from and just, I get success from this industry as opposed to let me contribute to the art form and the craft and you're giving to that industry. I feel like that for me, that was like the insight in the pages of this book was like, you enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're happy.
Well, so I love what I do, and I do it because it makes me happy. But part of why it makes me happy is it makes other people happy. So we put on shows. So if you go to a concert, my one company, Moo TV, provides video screens and equipment. So if you go to a major concert, there's a great chance that the video screens and the cameras and the people implementing them on tour are my people. A good night in July, peak season, we might have 20 arena or stadium shows happening somewhere in the world. If we do our job right, the lights go out and 15 to 55,000 people scream. They're so happy. That's rewarding. That's a really cool feeling. One of my other companies design shows, and I was leading edge of video. I was on one of the very first tours to have video. Was in the right place in the right time to be a pioneer in that field. And so designing shows has been very near and dear to my heart, and doing all the visual design, not just where the screens are and what they look like and what shape they are, which is a big part of it, but also what's on the screens. Is it walls of flame because the band is doing something that just that metaphor would be cool? Is it, colors? Is it words? Like what is happening on the screens that adds to the event and just sets the stage? And then those are the two main things. And that's how I've contributed as a designer. I still design Brad Paisley's show, but I've designed for a lot of big acts, Alan Jackson, One Republic, and I love the design part of it. For designing just the graphics and those elements, I've done that for 100 bands probably, and it's just fun. What does this song make me feel like? What visuals should go up here? And when I first started, nobody was doing that. I actually went to my boss and said, I want your permission to moonlight. I want to get about $50,000 worth of equipment because that's what a camera and an editing system would cost back then. Now it's literally in your phone, but back then it was about 50 grand worth of stuff. And I said, I want your permission to moonlight. I'm going to create visuals for our tours and they're just going to be better and people are going to like what we do more. And he was like, this is a great idea. I think you're inventing an industry. So yes, but I insist on being your business partner in it. And I was grateful for all of that and his support. And we became partners. And that first generation of Moo TV was, to me, the very first design firm out there. There were people designing shows, but people were hiring their brother-in-law that went to film school or their music video director. And while these people were very talented, they were trying to tell a story inside a rectangle with every song, because that's what a video director does. And I realized that sometimes the rectangles just need to be a subtle part of the bigger picture. And as simple as that sounds now, putting things like flames or clouds or time-lapse footage or words or backdrops on the screens just wasn't done back then. And so I was really lucky to be in the right place at the right time to pioneer that industry.
Well, I can say the only person that I've seen in concert 5 times, Mr. Brad Paisley.
Oh, really?
I can definitely say I enjoy the difference of his shows, and it's just a lot of fun, and it keeps me coming back. How do you translate that to someone that sells insurance? How do you translate that to a nurse? For me, it goes back to that you found your why.
Yeah. What do you want to do? Like, yeah, what's your why? So in my book, I have 17 guests. One of my favorite contributors is this guy, Thomas Marshburn. He was flunking out of high school and he was flunking math. That's what it was. He was doing great everywhere but math. And he was going to be an artist. He liked drawing things and that's what he was going to do, something creative. And he read the book 13 about the Apollo 13 mission. And by the end of the book, he was like, I'm going to be an astronaut. And that dream of being an astronaut, his next thought was like, crap, astronauts don't fail math. So that dream of being an astronaut changed him in that not only did he get better at math, but he realized why he wasn't doing well at math. His thinking was cloudy and he was sort of getting this self-defeating state when he would go try and do his math problems. And he taught himself a whole new way of thinking and problem solving to get through math. But that has served him so well through his whole life. And he's flown everything. He's flown the shuttle. He's flown Soyuz. He's flown SpaceX. Incredible human. Spacewalked like 5, 6 times. Really cool guy. As you can guess, the musicians, their why was music, all of them. But Scott Hamilton's in the book, the Olympic skater. And Scott, skating was the first thing he was ever good at. And it just ignited a passion in him. And everybody needs their why. And it doesn't need to be your earth shattering, everything in my life is going to change why. Some of my whys have been, I want to see more of the world. So I'm just going to make myself a rule that every time I cross a body of water for work, I'm never coming home I won't let myself come home until I go to a country I haven't been to. And that thinking has now got me to like 60 countries and 7 continents. It might be, I decided to play hockey at 35 and I didn't know how to ice skate. That's insane. And I had so much fun. I played hockey for about 20 years. I'm a little old to be playing it now because the way I like to play it is pretty hard and I'll just break probably one of these days. So I thought I better get out while I still can. But those 20 years of playing hockey were incredibly rewarding. They weren't life-changing in that they didn't change my career and upend everything. But man, I went after something really unlikely, got good at it, and had a blast doing it. I wrote a book. I became a musician. Like there's lots of little things you can do that even if you feel stuck because your job is like a really good living and you got a family to support, your big why might take you away from all that. And you might just throw care to the wind and just see what the hell you can do with the rest of your life. But it might be something simpler. You might get a side hustle going. Who knows, whatever it is for you, but having the right why is huge.
What's the encouragement for those facing external barriers, like a math teacher that's, "Hey, you know what? I don't think you'd be an astronaut. Your grades are terrible."
I think that the encouragement is the same as any obstacle, and that's an external one. Most of mine were internal. There are always a few external ones, but Kate Snow gives a great example of this. Kate Snow is one of my contributors, NBC anchor correspondent, amazing career, and a really great lady. We've been friends most of our lives, and she was with ABC, and they put a brick wall in front of her. They were going to give her Good Morning America, and then they didn't. And that was when they didn't do that. After all the time she had logged there, she realized that they had put the ceiling on her. They felt like she was where she belonged, and she wasn't getting any beyond that. I'm paraphrasing. But she said, all right, I'm going to hop networks, which all of her friends said, and her agent said, don't do this. Like, you don't just hop networks unless they're going to give you the golden chair. Like, and she said, no, I know that ABC doesn't believe in me and I don't hate them for that, but I believe in me. And I'm going to go over to NBC and see if I can work my way up there. And she's at NBC and she does NBC News Daily. She sits at the anchor chair and she no longer has to travel 7 days a week being a roving correspondent all the time. So she can be with her kids and her family. And she chased her dream. But there was a big obstacle. It's like I say in the book, I feel very, very blessed that I have my own tour bus now and driver. But Mike will miss an exit every now and then. And I'll look up and go, Mikey, shouldn't we have? And he'll be like, and he'll just sort of smile and shake his head and go, Scott, there's more than one way around the barn. And that usually means he missed his exit, right? But it's so true. Like there's more than one way around the barn. A metaphor I like to give in the book, and this actually came from Cameron Harold, the entrepreneur who mentored me. He said, you don't want to be like the fly who bangs his head against the windowsill because he can see what he wants right on the other side of the window. If you keep banging your head against that same windowsill because there it is, you're going to end up dead on the sill. You got to be the fly who goes like, okay, I've hit my head against this thing 4 times. It ain't budging. I got to go around it. And you just got to find a way around. And if it's a math teacher, they're not going to fail you if you're doing the work and getting it right, I wouldn't think. If they do, you might have to repeat the course. That'd be pretty awful, though, and pretty extreme. But whatever the obstacle is, find a way around it, find a way through it, find a way over it, under it. And just remember, just like all of your doubt and whatever crap you're carrying in your head that gets in the way, it's not as bad as you think it is, and just keep moving forward.
Having that wisdom, the ability to step back. Things get cloudy when you're in a rush. Things get, messy and sometimes seems no way out. But just having that clarity to to just say maybe a piece is missing and you have to, you got to start with step one before you can work on step, 97 on your way to 100.
Yeah. I'm pretty bad at doing things in order, but I get through it. But what you just described is the thinking that Thomas described was keeping him from doing okay at math, the cloudy thinking and the, and if you look at the whole thing, it can look overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, I have these 100 things to do. I don't even know why I try. Or you could say, here's my next step. Here's my next step. Here's my next step. And the next thing you know, by the end of the day, there's 90 more things to do. And that's still a lot. But in 9 days, if you keep on pace, you'll be done.
And just not being afraid to have ownership of that identity. This is what I'm going to own. I'm going to let go of the things that are trying to own me.
Well, the early accomplishments in my life, a lot of that was done, in my opinion. So you'll see in the book that I go through some pretty tough stuff. And the pandemic is particularly hard on me. After beating failure for 30 years, the pandemic makes me fail my employees every day. I've got a couple hundred employees and I can't take care of them. And it really broke me in some ways. And so good news, good for me. I went to therapy. I did some EMDR and I did some psychedelic therapy. Both were incredibly impactful for me. And I believe that I did a lot of what I did early in my life because I was trying to prove something. And I felt like I had to do those things. And I am grateful for the accomplishments and where that has put me and the stories I have from that. But that's not how I think anymore. Now I think, what do I want to do for me? I don't have to do anything. What do I want to do? I know it's not nothing, it's something. So what is it? And so I do try and curate my life. We should live the life that pleases us for us. And it's great to be generous and giving. And I love that this book is helping people and people are already telling me like, man, thank you. This is helping me through addiction. There's not even addiction in here, but this one guy just emailed me and said it was helping him through that. It's just great to help. But ultimately, it helped me too. Like the best way to help the world is to help yourself. And if you help yourself be the best version of you, that gives you the strength to be the best version of you for the whole world. And I hope you take my meaning there and understand I'm not being self-centered. I'm saying do
I
what
get
you
it.
need to do for you. And of course, don't hurt people, right? If what you need to do for you is hurt people, then you need to really get into some heavy therapy and stop hurting people because that's not good. But take care of you. And that's to me the best way to take care of the rest of the world too.
Yeah, some of the best dating advice I had heard was don't look for the right person, be the right person.
Yes, exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You want the best life? Don't greedily try and grab things. Don't be a taker who walks around trying to get things from people. Figure out what you can give yourself and others, and you'd be amazed at what comes back to you. Gratefully, very early on into starting a company, my first employee was part-time business manager named Alice, who absolutely was another mother to me, and just an incredible lady who she loved the dreams I was dreaming, but she knew how to make the books work too. And she'd just call me and go like, okay, you got to do this. Yes, ma'am. And we lost Alice like a year and a half ago to cancer, but one of the absolute just pillars in my life. Yeah. Incredible lady.
Well, just how much more important does that show the difference between money and value as
Yeah.
well? What you find value in may not have a dollar sign attached to it. And just giving, and I feel like giving to whatever craft you're in, whatever industry you're in, there's a lot of value to be gained from that, even more than maybe the money you get from that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have money now, but it's not because I wanted money. I just wanted to help and I wanted to do something that I loved and I wanted to feel good about myself after feeling pretty bad about myself back in high school and college. And when you find something where you can do those things, the money comes. It just comes. And it's still not the most important thing, but it's not bad. I don't feel like I'm going to be living in someone's garage for the latter part of my life. I think I'm okay. But man, the big thing is find something you love, right? How many times have we touched on it here? And it just makes all the difference.
Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to ask this question. Being around so many high performing artists, a lot of great success, what are some lessons that you feel like you've learned from being around those who want to give and have greatness. And I'm going to a lot of concerts, and you can tell the ones who are doing it out of a passion of their own hearts versus someone who's just, their own stage singing songs or whatever. But being around that much talent, what do you feel like you've taken away?
Well, this goes back to the book. If you ask any of, so I wrote most of the book, but every chapter has at least one contributor. And if you ask any of them why they made it, they will all tell you it's because they didn't give up. But they might have, two of them have photographic memories, one of them fully photographic, one of them partially. We won't say who. The athletes all have incredible natural balance and the ability to build muscle. Half of them are really good looking, if not all of them, right? And they just have all these advantages that if I wanted a photographic memory, there's nothing I could do to get one. I either have it or you don't. But if you ask him why he made it, he won't ever mention that he has a photographic memory. He'll tell you, oh, it's because I didn't give up. And furthermore, he'll tell you somebody that was more important, or she will tell you somebody that was more talented than they were, who didn't make it because they did. They just didn't have it in them. So the big thing that was reinforced to me in writing the book. Like I knew it was true or I wouldn't have written it and invited these people. But boy, it really got reinforced to me that just trying and being willing to fail and just going at it in a tenacious way is the huge difference maker. And that was big for me. Another big thing that I really saw in some of my guests, not all, was that trauma can really be an engine. And so the people who have the most wrong with them, that can be an advantage because getting over that sets them up for everything that life throws at them after it. Like, for example, Scott Hamilton was born with cancer, born with it, and he was adopted. And so he was an adopted kid. His classmates knew he was adopted. They picked on him. But the cancer that he did not know he had, they didn't know what was wrong with him. He had a brain tumor from birth that stunted his growth. And Scott was super small and sometimes had like a tube hanging out of his nose. Like he was just really a sick kid, and they didn't think he was going to survive his childhood, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And his classmates picked on him, and talk about getting picked last for everything. I mean, nobody wanted him on their team for anything. And it was really hard. Scott Hamilton's life was hard. Other kids were playing. He was in the hospital. But he got through all that, and getting through all that in those formative years teed him up to be the most tenacious and positive outlook. Like everything, he's experienced such crap. The mind's a comparative instrument, that everything is just awesome to Scott. He's one of the most incredible humans you'll ever spend time around. You spend 10 minutes with him and you walk away thinking, you just feel better about yourself just because you were near him. He's just an incredible guy who's done unbelievable things. He went undefeated in figure skating for 4 years. Like, yeah, he won Olympic gold, but he didn't come in second for 4 years of competition, like world championships, US championships, everything along the way. And the reason he was teed up to do that was because he had the benefit of horrible disadvantages. And so that was really interesting to see that in some of these people.
It's how incredible the outlook of the mind, because that sounds like the origin story of a villain, of getting picked on, the disadvantaged. But
yeah,
just saying, you know what? That's about them. That's not me. What they say about me reflects more on them than it does me. Something inside of him to say they can't claim who I am.
Well, I always say if someone's really hurting you, it's because hurt people hurt people. People who are hurt other people. But I also say that if someone is really helping you, it's because hurt people also help people. People who have felt all the crap are the ones who have the compassion and understanding and go like, oh man, I get it. I get what Scott's going through, and I'm going to help him because I get it. And so, Scott's one of those people. Everything in life's a choice, and you can start making different decisions immediately. Peter Frampton's in my book, first album I ever owned. So I wanted to have Peter in there, and I've worked with him for over a decade now. Incredible human. But one of my favorite things he says in the book is it's never too late to start over. You can start over in the middle of your week. You can start over in the middle of the day. You can start over in the middle of what you're doing right now. It's never too late to start over. And he speaks that he had the biggest selling album in history, and his star fell so fast and hard that nobody wanted to do anything to do with him for 16 years. He couldn't sell shows. He couldn't, it was rough being Peter Frampton for 16 years. And then he's arisen like Phoenix from the flame. Now he's selling out shows again. He won a Grammy for his first record label drops him. It's like 20 years later, the record label picks him back up. And his first album back, he wins a Grammy for. Like, just a great example of a guy who just hung in there with the best attitude. He's the nicest human. And I got to say, I love all my guests. They've all done amazing things, but they're all really kind and giving and really interesting people.
And I want to highlight Peter's story here. And just to clear the air, like, this isn't about rebound or coming back for fame and success. This isn't about the dollar. This is about living out that identity that is yours. And that can mean working through marriage troubles. That could mean working through parenting troubles. That can mean working through school. If you're in college and maybe you dropped out a year ago, maybe it's time to go back. And, there's so many things that this applies to, which obviously why I wanted to have a conversation with you, but just the idea that be tenacious.
Yeah. And working through marriage, I mean, what's your why? Love is a fantastic why. Love is a powerful why. And working through college, if you're struggling, maybe you don't know what you want to do with your life. Maybe you're like I was, and you just couldn't overcome your crap because you didn't have a dream. Like, I was going to be an electrical engineer. Why? Sounded cool. I like electronics. It wasn't enough to get me over my crap, but yeah, find your why.
Find your why. Be tenacious about it. Scott, it has been absolute joy talking with you about this book. Just encourage everyone to go pick up a copy. And any final remarks, man? It's just been a pleasure having you on the show.
No, I just, the book's been out for like 2 weeks. Who knows? I don't know how fast you turn yours around. Releasing a book is really scary. You spend years making it and you're like, this is me. Like, this book is so much a piece of me that you're like, if people don't like this book, they don't like me. And, it was yet another time when I was really afraid, and so afraid that some dysfunction got in my way. I still struggle too. And I had a hard time finishing the book, and getting behind the promotion of it was hard because it was all so scary. But I didn't stop moving forward, and I did it. And the book is out, and there's just been great input from it. And I'm so proud of it. And it all worked out. And no one said anything bad to say about it yet. Somebody probably will. Like, people have opinions, and that's okay. I know from making music, 10 people will say, man, I love your new song. And the 11th comment will be, why were you born? And you're like, whoa. And then they just go on about how bad your song is. And you're like, wow, ouch. And that's okay. But overall, it's been great. And once again, the fear did not match the reality. I was more afraid of doing it than the reality of it. And so just get out there and try. Take some steps forward. Don't use excuses to not move forward, and do something really interesting and cool that'll make you happy and proud.
Keep fighting the good fight. Be tenacious. We'll keep marching on. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Nice talking to you, and nice talking to all of you listening. Cheers.